The world did not end with a bang. It almost ended with a misunderstanding. Picture a night where nothing feels urgent. No alarms, no headlines, no crowds running through the streets. Families asleep, cities quiet. The kind of night history usually forgets. But deep underground, behind steel doors and concrete walls, a handful of people were staring at screens that suggested humanity had only minutes left. And most of the world would never know. It was the height of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a standoff so tense that peace itself felt temporary. Both sides possessed enough nuclear weapons to erase civilization several times over. Missiles sat armed. Submarines waited in silence. Radar stations watched the skies without blinking. The doctrine was simple and terrifying. If one side launches, the other must respond immediately. No debate, no hesitation, no second chances. Because waiting could mean annihilation. This system depended on one thing above all else: accuracy. Early warning systems were built to detect incoming nuclear missiles as quickly as possible. Radar arrays scanned the horizon. Satellites watched for heat signatures from rocket launches. Humans trusted these machines because they had to. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, response times were measured in minutes. Once an alert appeared, leaders would have almost no time to decide whether to launch their own weapons. The margin for error was razor thin, and one night that margin disappeared. Inside a military command center, the routine was familiar. Operators monitored data streams. Analysts compared signals. Supervisors watched quietly. Then, without warning, the screens changed. Bright indicators flashed across the displays. Missile launch detected. Not one, not two, multiple. According to the system, nuclear missiles had been launched. They were coming. At first, no one spoke. Training took over. Operators checked secondary systems, cross-referenced data, verified timestamps. The readings were consistent. The trajectory was correct. The origin pointed directly to enemy territory. Every indicator said the same thing. This was a nuclear attack. Phones rang. Officers were summoned. Command protocols activated automatically. Somewhere above ground, leaders would soon be awakened and given the unthinkable choice: retaliate now or risk losing everything. The countdown had begun, but something didn't feel right. One officer, trained, experienced, unremarkable in rank, noticed a detail others dismissed: the number of missiles. It was too small. If the enemy were launching a first strike, it would not be limited. It would be overwhelming. Dozens, hundreds, enough to cripple response capabilities. But this launch showed only a handful, enough to provoke retaliation, but not enough to win. It made no strategic sense. Still, the machines insisted. The data did not waver. The alerts continued, and the clock kept ticking. Military doctrine did not allow for hesitation. If this was real, delay could mean the destruction of command centers, communication lines, and leadership itself. If this was false, retaliation would end the world. There was no third option. In moments like this, history does not depend on presidents or generals. It depends on individuals sitting in quiet rooms, interpreting imperfect information under impossible pressure. People who were never meant to carry the weight of civilization, but suddenly did. Some officers argued for immediate escalation. The system existed for a reason. It had been tested. It had never failed like this before. Others urged caution. There was no radar confirmation yet, no visual evidence, only satellite data. Was that enough? The tension inside the command center thickened. Sweat formed, voices lowered. No one joked anymore. Every second felt louder than the last. Outside, the world slept. Children dreamed. Lights glowed softly in windows, unaware that the survival of everything they knew was being debated in whispers. Then, another update arrived. More data, more confirmation. The system insisted again that the missiles were real. The countdown shortened. Decision windows closed. This was how the world was designed to end. Not with hatred, not with rage, but with procedure. And yet, one man refused to accept it. He did not shout. He did not panic. He looked at the screens, the numbers, the logic, and trusted something machines could not replicate: human judgment. Time no longer moved normally inside the command center. Seconds stretched, minutes collapsed. Every sound, a chair shifting, a pen tapping, a breath taken too loudly, felt amplified. The digital clock on the wall advanced with a cruelty that felt personal. Each passing second reduced the options. Each passing second increased the likelihood that someone, somewhere, would give the order. The warning system was not supposed to be questioned. It had been designed to remove human hesitation from the equation. Machines did not feel fear. Machines did not doubt. Machines did not second-guess. Machines delivered certainty. And yet, the certainty felt wrong. The officer at the center of this moment had spent years preparing for war that everyone hoped would never come. His training was exhaustive, his discipline absolute. He was not a rebel. He was not a dreamer. He was a professional, which is why his doubt carried weight. He leaned closer to the display. The system showed multiple missile launches, detected by orbital sensors designed to spot the intense infrared glow of rockets igniting in the atmosphere. These satellites watched constantly, never sleeping, never blinking. The logic was straightforward. Missile launch equals heat signature equals attack. But tonight, the launches appeared isolated. No simultaneous radar confirmation from ground-based systems. No corroborating data from secondary sensors. Just the satellites. Protocol demanded escalation. But protocol also allowed for human verification. Barely. He requested additional confirmation. The room stiffened. This was not a neutral act. Requesting confirmation meant delaying the response. Delaying the response meant gambling with survival. If the missiles were real, every second mattered. But if they were not, then escalation would be irreversible. Another officer checked incoming radar feeds. Nothing. The skies were empty. No objects rising above the horizon. No inbound trajectories crossing detection zones. Silence. The satellites insisted. The radars disagreed, and the clock kept moving. This was the flaw no one liked to discuss. Early warning systems were built with redundancy, but redundancy did not eliminate ambiguity. It only reduced it. In the final moment, someone still had to decide which signal to trust. Machines could detect, only humans could interpret. The officer considered the strategic reality. If an enemy launched a nuclear first strike, it would not be symbolic. It would not be limited. It would be overwhelming, aimed at command centers, missile silos, communication hubs. This launch did not match that doctrine. It looked hesitant, and nuclear war was never hesitant. Still, doctrine was doctrine. He knew the consequences of being wrong. If he dismissed a real attack, history would remember his name as the man who ended everything through doubt. If he reported a false attack as real, history would not exist to remember anything at all. The pressure was suffocating. Above him, layers of command waited. Below him, humanity slept. And right now, the fate of both balanced on interpretation. Then, something unexpected happened. A technical detail emerged, small, almost laughably insignificant on its own. The angle of detection. The satellites were positioned in such a way that sunlight, reflecting off high-altitude clouds, could, under extremely rare conditions, mimic the infrared signature of a missile launch. This possibility was theoretical, unlikely, almost dismissed in training manuals, but not impossible. He remembered the lesson, a footnote, a scenario described as nearly inconceivable. And yet, here it was. He took a breath and made the decision no system was designed to allow. He reported the alert as false. The room froze. This was not a recommendation. This was a declaration. Higher command demanded justification. He gave it calmly. Lack of radar confirmation, implausible strike size, known sensor limitations. His voice did not shake. His hands did not tremble. But inside, the weight was unbearable. The countdown did not stop immediately. Systems did not relax, but escalation paused. For the first time since the alert began, the clock slowed. Minutes passed, then more. Still no radar contact. Still no detonations. Still no confirmation. Gradually, the impossible truth emerged. There were no missiles, no attack, no war. The satellites had misread sunlight reflecting off clouds as nuclear launches, a cosmic coincidence, a technological illusion, a mistake. The world had come within minutes, possibly seconds, of nuclear war because of light hitting clouds at the wrong angle. No sirens sounded, no cities burned, no announcements were made. The night passed like any other. People woke up unaware that civilization had been spared by one human decision. The officer did not celebrate. There was no applause, no medal, no public acknowledgement. In fact, for years, the incident remained classified. Officially, nothing happened. But internally, something changed. Confidence in early warning systems cracked. Not enough to dismantle them, but enough to fear them. The terrifying truth became impossible to ignore. The systems built to prevent nuclear war could also start it, and all it would take was one misinterpretation, one assumption, one tired person trusting the wrong signal. The incident was quietly sealed behind classified folders and locked doors. But the danger did not end that night. It multiplied. What few people understood, even inside military command, was that this was not an exception. It was a preview, a warning that went mostly ignored. Because while one officer had doubted the machines, others, in other moments, would not. In another year, another country, another command room, the systems would speak again. This time, it was a radar station scanning the frozen horizon. Operators watched their screens as blips appeared where none should exist. Objects moving impossibly fast. Multiple trajectories, dozens, then hundreds. The room fell silent. Protocol activated instantly. Phones rang. Commands moved upward. The message was clear. Incoming nuclear strike detected. There was no satellite data this time, only radar. And radar, unlike satellites, could be fooled by the Earth itself. Temperature layers in the atmosphere bent signals. Reflections bounced. Ghost images formed, convincing enough to pass initial verification. The radar insisted. Reality did not. A senior officer stared at the screen. He had seconds. He remembered the same doctrine taught on both sides of the Cold War. If the enemy launches first, hesitation equals death. But something felt wrong. The trajectories were too clean, too perfect, too symmetrical. War was chaos. This looked mathematical. He ordered a delay, not cancellation. A delay. The phone on his desk rang again. Higher command demanded action. Why were missiles not being readied? Why was retaliation not underway? He answered with a single sentence. I do not believe this is real. That sentence nearly ended his career, but it may have saved the world. Minutes passed, then more. The blips faded. The skies remained silent. No explosions, no fallout. Another false alarm. Another near miss. Another secret buried. By the late Cold War, these incidents were no longer rare. They were disturbingly frequent. Training exercises were mistaken for real attacks. Computer chips malfunctioned. Software errors escalated harmless data into existential threats. In one case, a single faulty line of code simulated a massive enemy strike during a live system check, and operators had no immediate way to tell the difference. Again and again, humanity stood at the edge, not because of hatred, not because of ideology, but because of mistakes. What made this even more terrifying was the psychology. Each false alarm trained leaders to expect the next one to be real. Each delay increased paranoia. Each correction increased distrust in human judgment. The machines were becoming faster, more automated, more confident, and humans were slowly being pushed out of the loop by design. The logic was cruel but efficient. Humans panic, machines calculate, but machines do not understand consequence. They do not fear extinction. They do not imagine children sleeping in cities beneath their calculations. They only execute. One internal report, declassified decades later, contained a chilling sentence. Under optimal conditions, full nuclear exchange decision time may be reduced to under 5 minutes. 5 minutes to verify data, to challenge systems, to question reality, to decide whether civilization lives or dies. And those 5 minutes were shrinking. What saved the world was not technology. It was not strategy. It was not deterrence. It was people, individuals who hesitated when they were trained not to. People who questioned machines designed to remove doubt. People who chose uncertainty over annihilation. And yet, these people were never meant to exist in the system. They were anomalies, accidents. By the end of the Cold War, officials wanted the world to believe the danger was over. The flags changed, the speeches softened, the missiles stayed exactly where they were. What disappeared was not the weapons, it was the attention. The systems that nearly ended everything were never dismantled. They were upgraded. Computers became faster. Early warning algorithms became more complex. Decision timelines became shorter. And the belief quietly settled in: the machines will catch the mistake before humans do. That belief is the most dangerous one humanity has ever invented, because history shows the opposite. Every close call was stopped, not by technology, but by doubt. Not by certainty, but by hesitation. In one classified review, a military analyst wrote, "Had protocols been followed exactly as designed, retaliation would have occurred. The world survived because the system failed to obey itself." This is the part that is hardest to accept. Civilization did not survive the nuclear age because we were careful. It survived because people broke the rules. And now, those rule breakers are being removed. Modern nuclear command systems are built to eliminate delay. Automation reduces human input. AI filters data before it reaches commanders. Pre-authorized responses exist for scenarios where leadership may not survive long enough to decide. This is not science fiction, this is doctrine. The logic is simple and terrifying. If humans hesitate, they die. If machines act, deterrence holds. But machines cannot recognize fear. They cannot sense intuition. They cannot look at a screen and feel that something is wrong. They only know patterns, and patterns can lie. Solar flares still blind satellites. Sensor glitches still occur. Software still fails. Only now, systems move faster than ever before. The margin for human judgment has narrowed to seconds, sometimes less. Experts quietly admit this in interviews and reports. They call it accidental war risk, a polite phrase for global suicide by misunderstanding. What makes this even more unsettling is how close we still live to it. Missile silos remain active, submarines remain on patrol, launch protocols remain armed. Right now, as you listen to this, no sirens will warn you, no countdown will appear. If the mistake happens, it will unfold silently, in rooms you will never see, in decisions you will never hear, and by the time the truth arrives, it will be too late to undo it. This is not a story about the past. It is a story about how fragile the present still is. The Cold War did not end. It simply stopped being discussed. The most terrifying thing about nuclear war is not how it would begin. It is how easily it almost already did. Not once, but many times, and the next time, there may be no one left to hesitate. Fade to silence.